Jade, Jade, Jade. I was gonna sit there for a while. Okay. I'm gonna clip that in. Oh god. I'm just leaving it in. Hello everybody. Welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports. That is our cold open. I know Silvia wants me to do more of a cold open. We'll work on it. Maybe when I'm in a better mood and I don't have to watch Kraken hockey where they let 4 goals in the first period. This is another episode of keeping up with the Seattle Kraken. Keeping up is becoming increasingly painful as Seattle just looks rudderless. They look like their ship has sunk. Include your nautical wordplay and themes all you want. Do whatever you can to try and impress Allison Lucan with that because God bless Allison Lucan and God bless her wordplay. Um, it's bad, man. I mean, uh, by the time Sylvia and I wrapped up our sort of quicker show, after the takeover tour last week, takeover tour, which we're gonna just uh, sorry, I had to watch real hockey. And this came in the mail today. So um but yeah, ever since then, there's the tight loss to the Devils, which I think is that 3-2 score is the same 3-2 score that the Kraken lost by in New Jersey. The Kraken did not blow New Jersey up. Shout out to Chief Keef. Um, and then they go on this 5 game road trip, and I was kind of skeptical. I think maybe even hopeful that there was going to be something in these early games where you play a Columbus, you play Buffalo, and you play Detroit, who, if you look at them overall on the season, they haven't had the best. Columbus is a fun story. They really are a fun story with, obviously, the year doesn't start out great with the passing of the Gaudreau brothers, and it's very emotional. Sean Monahan's been a great story. Zach Werenski's been a great story. Kirill Marchenko is having a great year, who I have in fantasy. Thank you, Kirill. Um, they've had a great story this season, and I think I don't know if they're still in it, but last earlier in the week they were in a playoff spot.
They
So
still are.
they still
A
well,
wild
there
card
you
spot.
go.
Yep.
So, Buffalo, there aren't many fan bases that I think suffer as much as the Mariners. The Buffalo Sabres are certainly up there. Um, and nope, nope, wrong show. The Kraken pulled off a win there after one of the ugliest first periods I've ever seen, which somehow got even worse after they came back to beat the Sabres in that game on Saturday, in the first game of a back to back. They get absolutely lampooned in the Sunday game against the Detroit Red Wings, giving up 4 goals in the first period. Um, yes,
I have a
thanks.
really fun story to interject about today's game. So my
Uh-oh.
4-year-old has never cared about hockey before. I got him a set of sticks and a net and a jersey for his birthday. And the last time I put on a game, he freaked out and said that he wanted to watch monster trucks instead of hockey. And then today I put on the Kraken game and he goes, "Mom, is this uh the Seattle Kraken team?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is the Seattle Kraken." And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then the game happened. So,
No
Way to
more
bury
Seattle Kraken.
your 4-year-old's like hopes and dreams.
yeah. So, perhaps I don't have a future hockey player on my hands, but
Seattle
he,
Kraken will pay for their crimes.
yep, he did get to experience Seattle sports for the first time ever for real. So, fun for me, bad for him. Well, really not that
Looks.
fun, but
Good luck, son.
yeah.
Good. Uh, so yeah. Anyway, but thank you for that, and the God bless him and the horrors that will come of him in this sport because
Yeah.
I oy vey. Um, there's a few ways we could go with our opening topic here about what to think about this past week because again, Monday against the Devils, like it is a loss, yes, but to push one of the better teams in the league this year to that 1 goal, um, just the loss of by 1 goal, it's a bad thing. Like it's not the loss that you suffered in Columbus. It's the loss that you suffered in Detroit. And if the trends here continue, the Kraken will either win 6-2 on Tuesday against the Pittsburgh Penguins or lose 6-2 because the last 3 games that they've played have resulted in a final score of 6-2. Um, I don't know. Sylvia, kick us off here, and then Jade, I'll
Oh,
have you pick it up. What do you what words, what comes to mind? How hopeless are you after this last week of Seattle Kraken hockey?
I will never lose hope, and I need to make that once again clear. That is not me. But I don't know. I look, I mean, we're witnessing a team where like nothing is changing. And like we talked about it last time, where at least I'm sitting here listening to these post-game interviews, these intermission interviews, where they're saying, we got to crash the net, we got to do this, we got to do that, and then proceed to not do any of the things that they're talking about. So it's a lot, it's still just an incredibly unpredictable team, and not unpredictable in like the way you would want a team to be unpredictable on the ice. It's just incredibly inconsistent. It is a tough watch, especially when you have a goalie being pulled twice in 2 games. That's tough in and of itself. I think we've talked about the way that people talk about Gru online, offline. And then watching him kind of carry the team while Joey's out and then fully fall apart while after Joey comes back, it's just rough. I think it is. I don't know. I don't know, how can you spin this? Our AHL team's pretty good. I'll give you that. Our AHLers, they're pretty good. Despite some people saying they're not. Again, we have some good talent coming in, and that's kind of the only thing that I can say about the Kraken right now, is that I'm looking for a future where the Kraken aren't these Kraken.
I agree with a lot of that. I the past week has been at least like mildly disappointing, if not very disappointing. I didn't watch, was it the Columbus game? Yeah, didn't watch the Columbus game. I think I napped through it, which I keep doing, and then sometimes we win, sometimes we lose really bad. But today's game was just, honestly, I have nothing really good to say about today's game. Like I'm trying to rack my brain for something good and I just have nothing. There seems to be this thing where uh Grubauer, I have a note on my phone that I wrote down, but he'll let a goal in and then shot off of his left side will kind of throw him off, and that's kind of how teams tend to score so quickly in succession with him. I've seen it a handful of times this season, and I just you said that they're unpredictable, not in the way that you want them to be, and I agree with that. I think that they are predictable in the way that they continue to play just just not good. I think I tweeted about it earlier that it was ugly hockey. Like nothing that the Kraken were doing was good in my opinion. So, I don't know. I haven't lost hope because, at a minimum they're going to get a good draft pick if nothing else. But yeah, I just scratch the whole season. Let's start over.
All right, let me cook here for a second. This is just I want to get the ridicule, and to Sylvia's point, this was a thought of hers several few shows ago, right? About the coaching staff, and Sylvia's had talked about the coaching staff throughout the course of the season, whether it be on this show or before it. But I'm tired of the rhetoric that the coaching staff is the problem, or that firing the staff would do anything to help this team. My big thing, and I've sent this, I think, to us, to group chats, whatever it may be, maybe even via carrier pigeon to anyone who will receive it. The Kraken are largely the same group that we saw last year. Their top nine is largely the same. The goaltenders are the same. The the defensemen are largely the same outside of two old fuddy duddies and Justin Schultz and Brian Dumoulin. Okay. Like, this is largely the same group. If you're telling me that bringing in Josh Mahura, I'm not starting that yet, messes up everything so much, believe you. Chandler Stevenson has been bad. Yes, sure. Insert your words about the contract. I've moved past the issues of the contract. it is what it is now. Address it in the offseason if want to be that you want to get rid of it that bad. I'd be fine with it. Like buyout would be great, cool, whatever, just to get rid of it. But I don't think they do that right now. I think buying out a guy in the middle of the season is an extremely bad look. Unless the guy says, "Hey, I just want to get the hell out of here," which I don't think the guy wants to do. I imagine he and his family have a house here now. So, um, my point is, if one aspect of your issue is still the same and one is new, what am I going to blame if your results stay the same? I'm not going to blame, you know, the pilot if the plane I'm flying on is a piece of junk that has repeatedly failed, right? Last year, it's not like last year they went to the playoffs, right? I mean, this was a team that underperformed last year and couldn't score goals. This is a team underperforming again this year, and outside of the occasional 6-2 win or the 8-2 win in Montreal, you know, um, those the random we're gonna decide to actually lock in. Um, this is a team that struggles to score consistently, right? And like Silvia said, they talk about going to the hard areas and this and that. And they don't do that consistently. Like it was a remarkable thing to see Andre Burakovsky his goal on Buffalo in Buffalo because he was actually going to the net. Two of the like smaller framed guys and Oliver Bjorkstrand and Andre Burakovsky were net front for that. That's good to see, but they don't do it consistently. So it doesn't matter. Like I think blaming the staff is stupid. Um, if any, and my main thing in that regard goes to Bilesma and Campbell. I think there are fan pages for one, which people going to fan pages for analysis open the schools. I don't. What are we doing? Like some Jim Bob, can just go the Kraken fan page and steal photos and create horrible Canva graphics, and somehow they're reputable. Like, what are we doing? And this dick trick is talking about. I think Campbell needs to go. My brother in Christ, like if anything, I'm getting rid of Bob Woods with how the defenses looked for most of the season. Like, at least last year, the defense looked somewhat good. They had more structure. I don't know what I'm watching in Detroit, in Columbus. I was like, C-Bus? I don't know what I'm watching in those games. And he's the guy who's supposed to be coaching your D. So, and then blaming Campbell for skating, like I don't know if they're having skating issues. I don't know what that's about. So, um, I don't know. My main point is that largely your roster has stayed the same. It has not worked over the 4 years that you've existed. One was an outlier in the playoffs, and you saw guys hit career highs. We're going to talk about Daniel Sprong later in his comments, so keep that energy ready for when we get there. But yeah, well, it's a great example. Daniel Sprong, of all people, had a career year. Ryan Donato had a career year. Oh, well, I think he's had better with Chicago now, maybe because he's got expanded minutes. But, like all of these guys shot way over their normal like percentage. It was there was a game in Chicago where Jared McCann essentially shot it from the red line and it went through Peter Mrazek. Like, I know Peter Mrazek sucks, but come on. Like, they were just getting anything. It's an outlier, right? When you have one of those four and you're using it as a bit, why aren't they like 2022, 23? That is an outlier. And that happens in sports, you know? So I'm just tired of that rhetoric. And I think, you know, um, and maybe we'll touch on it more when we kind of look at sort of the midseason stuff, because we were over the midseason point of 41 out of 82 games. Um, but this is a roster that needs serious retool, and I think they can be competitive again next year. I really do. And I imagine that, we saw it this offseason with bringing in Montour, with bringing in Stevenson. They do want to compete. Like, we are past the point of just sitting and developing those prospects that are in the AHL, as mentioned by Silvia, right? And I would push back that the Kraken have a bad future because you've got a great prospect pool. Berkeley Catton's still a few years away. Jagger Firkus is still developing. Edward Chale, is back after a great IIHF World Juniors Championship, right? Leighton Road is playing first line minutes with the Firebirds. I love Leighton Road. Nikki Coco had a point tonight as a goalie. We love goalie points. Like, and that's just the AHL. We're not even looking further, at Carson Rakoff back in the OHL. Yeah, da, 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 da. Like, I'm not worried about the future of this organization because I don't think that the problems right now will affect them in 2 to 3 to 4 years. I don't. I think a lot of these guys will be gone. I think Jaden Schwartz will be gone. Jordan Eberle will probably have been retired. Jamie Alexiak won't be here. The big rig is going to park somewhere else and suck. Like, I'm not concerned about that. I think there needs to be serious retool in order to compete again next year, whether it be because of external pressure from your season ticket holders, from the a potential NBA bid to bring a men's team here. Do you know men play sports? I think they're too emotional for that. I don't know. Um, I think it's possible. I just don't know if it's Ron Francis making those moves and cleaning up the mess that he created. So I just there's a lot of thoughts and opinions about this team, and I needed to push back on the coaching staff idea. You know, oh Jesus, Jade sent a one where there was a comment. Some person thought that bringing back Dave Haxtell. So I just see that. But yeah, that's that. The delusion is crazy. I go into lunacy every once in a while, but not that far. So, yeah, that's another Charles rant on this show. I don't know how many we're up to now. I might start a counter. I'll just have it like in the corner of ding. So,
Your
um,
reaction gift to that was incredible, by the way. The Rule 27, get out of the kitchen or you can't cook or
this
whatever.
this motherfucker can't cook. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, don't, Dave Hackstall, come on, come
I also
on.
have a problem when people say that they should fire Bilesma or that they need a coaching change or whatever because he did take the Firebirds to playoffs 2 years in a row. Granted, they didn't win, but like he took them to playoffs. He isn't really lacking in coaching skills the way that some people seem to think he is, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Obviously, there can be a complaint set about every single coach. Lord knows I have mine with John Tortorella, but
what? What?
yeah.
No.
Uh, but I just don't, I agree with you. I don't think that there's a coaching change necessary. And I've had people asking me plenty of times, you know, when do you think that we see a coaching change next? And I'm like, I not for at least another season or two. I don't see anything changing there super soon unless there's like a huge management turnover where, you know, a new GM comes in and wants his own coach, which
Yeah.
then that's fair, but I don't see coaching changes happening.
I also
So,
think with the coaching situation, like sure, again, we've talked about the team's doing bad. We're not it's the same team for last year, but also when we do see like the little minuscule moments of coaching, they're always good,
Hmm.
right? Maddie being sat down, Wright being sat down, like and then them coming back out, scoring their goals, killing whatever they needed to kill. Like that is the impact that coaching has. And that's frankly the impact that Dan Bielsma has always had on his teams. It's like that interpersonal aspect of it. I remember when he was on the Penguins. I mean, I was a kid, but I was still following along. And I remember following him through the AHL. And like he has just consistently been a coach who is willing and able to create those relationships with his players and get something good out of them. So if you're seeing that from the coach, you're seeing that from these players that are being sat down, then maybe, like you say, Charles, maybe it is your GM. Maybe it is your aging core. Maybe if you want to have a dynamic Seattle team, let's start with some dynamic Seattle players.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. You talk about this, you go back to this core, and we're gonna stay here. Um, I largely wanted to push the narrative that Seattle doesn't have a true superstar away. I just didn't care for it. I was like, hey, like you're gonna like no one's gonna sit here and you can't just sit and play in the corner until a superstar falls in your lap. Like that's just not how a league is run. You have to go out and try and compete and Jesus, not to reference Moneyball, but create production, maybe with a few players that one guy would produce, right? So, you know, but I don't. Maybe Seattle does need a superstar. Maybe they need to wait for a Nikolai Ehlers, Ehlers. I'm sorry, or something with Winnipeg because I don't know if the Jets are able to keep things together after this season. Does Kyle Connor want to stay in Winnipeg? Shake that up. Uh, is Ehlers supposed to hit free agency? If he is, which again, those caliber players don't hit free agency that often. Again, I think we talked about it last week or in a show before. This pipe dream that Leon Draisaitl would hit free agency, and you throw the franchise at him. You say, "Hey, you want to be a part owner? Hey, come on! Like anything you can do to get a guy like that." Like
Mitch Marner to the Seattle Kraken when?
Mitch Marner, if Mitch Marner becomes available, I know there are people who don't like him. I don't give a. You need talent. You need, I can't have Andre Burakovsky, the shell of what Andre Burakovsky is, playing first line minutes anymore. It is not a winning team, and he's not that guy anymore. Like, you know, uh, so I'm just the ways that NHL superstars largely come about is either you draft and develop them, or rarely they become available and look for a change of scenery, like Jack Eichel, right? As much as Vegas maybe Hema, like it just they don't really hit free agency that often, right? Like and when I've looked at free agents for the upcoming year previously, like there's a few guys that could become available. Even last season, like, excuse me, who was the Panthers forward that was going to hit free agency, um, but didn't, and he signed, um, oh, shoot, he had a really high shooting percentage, but it didn't seem realistic that he would hit free agency. Or if he was, I don't think it was Sam
The
Bennett.
name is
What?
like on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember.
Not Sam Bennett, right? Hmm. I'll look at Florida, but like there, well, even other guys like a Jake Gensel, I was like, there's no way you're gonna get Jake Gensel unless you throw a lot of money at him, and
Carter
obviously they
Verhaeghe.
Was it for Hagee?
I think
Jesus.
so.
Um,
Yeah, back in October.
yeah, it was like if he becomes available, you have to throw everything at him, and
Hmm.
obviously he didn't. Right? This is my point. They don't become available. They usually sign. They get re-upped, and people lock them down. I knew you weren't gonna get a Jake DeBrusk, like so. Um, I don't know. It was just my spot track is really taking a nap today. I was trying to use it during our Mariner show, and even right now it's taking a nap. Um, so I don't know. That's my thing is like you have to retool somehow, and you've got to move guys. Maybe you do get creative. I know that on the last 32 Thoughts podcast with Elliot Friedman and the other kid, I don't know. I don't know. He's just a white guy. I'm sorry. And I'm only there for Elliot. Friedman said that the Kraken this year might be more willing to move on from their defensemen. As last year they were getting calls on him and they disappointed a lot of teams. They disappoint me every night. Um, by not moving any of them. He said this year they might be more willing to listen, but he said he didn't think it would include Adam Larson. I was like, I don't think it makes sense to move 6, 29, or 62. 24, it's a different story. And I
Hmm.
don't really I didn't, in my opinion, it doesn't make sense to move 41 just because he's young and he's controllable for the time being, and you've kind of brought him up. And, for now, he's cheaper, right? I would rather a young guy who's cheap that you're comfortable with, you know, than trying to bring in some free agent or bringing in a lesser forward from your, because Ty Nelson's not ready yet, is Ville Otavainen ready in Coachella Valley? Are you rolling with Kale Fleury or Gustav Olofsson? I'd rather just keep Riker Evans and not have to think about it. And then I don't think anybody would. trade you for Josh Mahura. I'm not an NHL GM as much as I might cosplay one on Twitter. Um, but I don't know what people are thinking, with Mahura. So the only ones that would make sense in my mind to move on from, well, only one is Jamie Alexiak. So, um, yeah, uh, that's my thought on that. So, and I imagine Brandon Tanev and Yanni Gord are gone at some point, whether it is at the deadline this year or in the off season when they're full free agents. Um, but then it gets tough. Then it becomes the decisions. Do you buy out an Andre Burakovsky? I say yes. Are you somehow able to move Chandler Stevenson's contract? I don't know. Do you get rid of a guy like Jaden Schwartz who is productive but is older and his contract's up next year, and you can get some value out of him? Like you have to shake things up because we've gone through this core of the expansion draft with a few added pieces of flair. It's done. We're cooked, we're charred, we are boiled. It is done. Like Sylvia's great and she has great optimism. I do not. I am tired of it. Not
I'm
the
like
optimism.
smack dab in the middle of you guys. I feel like I can keep the optimism, but then also I'm like, I hate it. The Kraken may never win again. Very dramatically. And I don't actually mean that when I say it, but I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of you guys where I have optimism and then I'm like, nope, what's working is not, or what we're doing is not working.
That's why we're the best Kraken show ever. We've got it
Hmm.
all. We got a little bit of
Oh,
everything.
what more could you need? We have variety. Um,
Have Hillary Knight on the show. It's perfect.
yeah. So I don't know. We'll top. We'll move on here from
Sure.
yeah, we'll move on here. Oh God, I'm on Puckpedia now and there's a buyout calendar, a calculator. We'll go on here to thoughts on the team at the at midseason. I feel like we've kind of talked it about the general team, but we have our superlatives here. Um, I've gotten my mind on this, and I feel like it might overlap with at least one. But best player, I just went with Brendan Montour. I mean, if Jared McCann had kept up his pace from the beginning of the season, it would probably be Jared. Lord knows I love my youth pastor, but he really has slowed down quite a bit and kind of hit a nasty streak. And I think on a lot of teams that would be fine considering he is a guy that so often look to as a goal scorer. But when no one else knows how to put the little rubber thing into the nylon, it becomes a big issue. And it kind of seems like it's his fault when it really isn't. So I went with Montour. I mean, his contract, I was a little bit like, oh, and I also didn't know that the Kraken at the time of free agency were looking at a D-man. So I was like, what are we doing here? Um, but I'm not. I kind of quickly learned. I found out. And he's just been incredibly dynamic for this team. Vince Dunn could have been this pick too, just with how much instant impact he's added and all the numbers about, when he's on the ice, how many goals they score and how much better they are in terms of play. But I went with Montour just because he's largely been more available, right? Vince was out for a stretch of time, so that's what I went with here. Jade will go with you, and then Sylvia, you can wrap us up in the best player department at midseason after that.
I mostly agree with Montour. I also have been a little bit blown away more recently by Bjorkstrand. Um, he's he just seems like I don't know, this sounds so bad, but he's just one of those guys that like you don't really think about that often. Like he just kind of is there. Like I like thinking back to last season, I knew when he was on the ice, but I never really like I don't know, I feel like he was just kind of just a guy to me, like not really standing out. And this year I feel like he's kind of stood out to me a little bit more. Um I think he has what, 13 goals or something this season. So, like, obviously, that's not the biggest part of a standout player, but I don't know, there's something that's just sticking out to me this year, and I can't quite pinpoint it yet. So I'll circle back to that in a few episodes, but him and Montour.
Sorry, I was drawing a circle.
Oh, okay.
Silvia, go ahead.
All right. I'm gonna go with Schwartz. I think when you like lose a captain, the way we've kind of lost, our captain here to pregnancy, it sounds like. Um,
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
my captain. Yeah, I think like having players like that, having the veterans with all of this experience step up really makes a difference. And anytime I've heard any of the other players talk about Schwartz, it's always been about how good he's been in the locker room, how, how his presence there has really helped a lot of the rookies, even folks who aren't rookies, like just are your general season players. Also, I mean, his production's good. He's usually in the right spot when he needs to be. Yeah, I think for me, he definitely is. He's an impact player, and that's kind of what the Kraken need right now. You're not going to win if your players are all upset that they keep losing, and I think Jaden Schwartz really fleshes them out in that sense. So he's my pick.
Yeah, those are two great picks. I mean, Jaden Schwartz, I feel like I've always kind of known Jaden Schwartz has had that talent, but when you see the stretch like he had from the Vancouver game in Vancouver, when the tear he was on, I think when they came back in the Utah game, I just kind of looked at Jade after one of his goals and I said, I was just kind of stunned. Um, it's and that's why I talk about when I talk about, roster shakeup. I was like, Jaden Schwartz is a guy that you probably don't want to lose because of his experience, his leadership, and his production, but he's one of your like arguably your better trade chips, in terms of guys who actually produce. Um, you
He's
know,
similar to Bjorkstrand for me, where like he just kind of flies under the radar. Like he does a lot,
sure.
but like really
Oh, I see. I see. Like
does,
not flashy.
yeah,
Yeah.
nothing that he does ever really like super sticks out, but he's there doing what he needs to be doing when he needs to be doing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was trying to put a pin on that too. Yeah, no, I mean those are both guys who are productive in that sense, but they also, yeah, they don't really, I don't know, they're not guys who fight. They don't really do a bunch of flashy things. They don't talk. I mean, not a lot. I don't think there are a lot of hockey players who are super like big talkers in the best word because obviously chirping is a whole thing, but like, they're not a ton of like super brash players, at least in my mind. So yeah, no, those are two great picks. This one was kind of hard, at least in my opinion. I feel like if the season had gone better, I'd have more positive surprises to look into. But I've only really kind of got two here, and they're tough because they start with this idea that I was thinking of them negatively. Um, Not so much with Riker Evans. Riker Evans' point production has been surprising to me because, when he was up last year and he was really only getting games when, Brian, like Dumoulin was hurt or someone was hurt, right? And then they kind of started to give him more run at the end of the year. Um, excuse me. Uh, he it just seemed like it was impossible for this guy to get a point. I was like, just get an apple, dude. Just get the secondary assist. Like, and I'll never forget when he scored that first goal and you guys know that Arizona had a team when he scored in Arizona down there against the Coyotes. Like, I'll never forget the reaction. Don't even stick with that. Um, how happy he looked, how his teammates looked, how the internet kind of blew up about it. Like it was pretty cool. And so I didn't really expect, I was like, this guy's never going to get a point. He's not going to be a producer. He's already got 5 goals this season. He's got 14 assists, like nearly 20 points in 42 games. It isn't like, obviously, he's not going to win the Norris, but I didn't think he'd produce that much. And he's done a lot better. Like I remember the first month, I was like, wow, he's actually on the score sheet. Like he knows how to do that. So that's been a positive for me. I like seeing that. It's why like I would prefer to not move Riker Evans, going back to what Friedman said about, the D-man, potential D-man trades. And then the other thing was, and I did this video, I did the like reaction after Joey signed his extension with RJ from Minimum City Hockey. There's a lot of talk about the dangers of signing a goaltender, especially not like a super young one, which Joey's not old, but he's not like a spry young little chap either. To a 5-year deal, with decent term, like there's concern. And there was thought, last year was Joey's real only extended period at the NHL level. I was concerned. I was like, what is this guy going to show me, as, arguably the 1A guy coming into the year? And he's done pretty solid. I mean, we're sitting here um, after the Detroit game. Obviously, the team itself has been terrible over the past week, but he's got 13 wins, a 2.49 goals against average. He's over 900 save percentage. Obviously goalie stats are fascinating, and they're not strictly the goalie. But I was a little worried, honestly, coming into the season about what he might look like if last year was a fluke, or if he'd be able to handle the same sort of workload this year. And I you know outside of whatever the hell happened in that practice in Colorado when he got the upper body injury, he's been pretty solid. So Silvia, will go to you. Positive surprises this season, and then Jade, have you wrap up this superlative after that.
The Kraken fandom resilience, I would say. No, okay, so I like teetered and tottered. I did both between uh Chandler and Brandon Montour because I think there was a lot. Nope. Yep, Chandler Stevenson, that is his name. I think there was a lot of conversation. There was a big reaction to their acquisition over the summer, especially, their contracts. um, I know Chandler Stevenson not having the best time. I do think, correct me if I'm wrong, please, stats boy. I think he's third in the team for points. Um, he doesn't look his best on the ice, but he's producing. And I think, you know, that says something. I think I know I joked a lot about Brandon Montour becoming the captain or the off season into the start of the season. And I mean, I still think he could have done it. But I think I didn't realize how impactful he was going to be for this team and how much he was going to carry the team. A lot of the time, even in his worst games, he's often one of our best players. So yeah, I think probably Brandon Montour is kind of my biggest surprise in like the positive sense of, this is I know he just won a Stanley Cup. I know he's a good player, but is he good enough to stand out on this team? And he obviously is because our team isn't that good anyway. So um yeah, Brandon Montour.
Um, I think my biggest positive, I'm kind of flip-flopping between a couple, but I think my biggest one was the way that Grubauer performed when Joey was out most recently. We see a lot of Grubauer hate on Twitter and various platforms. But I think that he really, and I know that this isn't the case from all the time, but he really I feel like did a good job when Joey was out. And I was a little bit blown away by that because I know how the team performs in front of him, and I know uh oh, I saw something on Twitter earlier that was like he's an average performing goalie but has a, not so great team, which makes him look like really bad or horrible, or I can't remember the exact wording that they use, but I really agree with that. I'd say 95% of the time. Like usually there's like he could have saved that, he didn't. Okay, whatever, it's just one goal, it's fine. And then there are times where it's like, okay, where are you guys at? Why are you not where you're supposed to be? So I feel like when Joey was out most recently, the way that Grubauer stepped in was uh, probably one of the best parts of the season for me, if I'm being honest, because
Yeah,
it just
no,
was
all
nice to see that happen.
yeah, no, that was the thing too, and we talked about it on a show right a few weeks ago about what this looks like if Joey's out an extended period of time, and I was worried he would combust if
Hmm.
we had to ride him that long, and I mean we're kind of seeing not great stuff right now, but also the team isn't playing too great right now.
Yep.
So yeah, no, I mean that was a big thing, and part of my worry coming into the season if is Joey going to be able to handle that workload, and part of that does go to availability. And it's like, well, can you rely on Grubauer who continues to get older? People don't get younger. That's not a thing. Um, like, are you going to be able to rely on him for that? And I mean, he came on and did that. It's not like the team played too much better in front of him, but and then to Sylvia's points, uh, it's completely with Brandon Montour. Absolutely. I mean, like there are nights where he isn't maybe igniting offense or that sort of thing, or joining the rush like he has at points during this season. But he's had so many times where he's the one where a puck is like sitting in the blue paint and he just is there. He's the last line of defense when he necessarily shouldn't be. And that's instinct. That's watching. It's just like if that was something that everybody can do, Josh Mahura would be doing it. Like and then with Stevenson, yeah, I mean, again, it's like I'm tired of the talk about the contract because again, it was talked about all season anyway, and in the off season. I just get tired of beating a dead horse. Um, you know, and even in the moment, like it was known he wasn't a goal scorer. Like the book on him at the time, I remember because Sylvia wrote about it and I edited it and we pushed it out. Uh, he's a distributor. As he in I hope as stat boy, I did my job because I did thumbs up about him being third in points here. Technically he's tied for second with Schwartz at 29 behind McCann with 32. So yeah, I mean if you want to go that far, he's got the 24 assists, which isn't nothing, obviously, because I mean it's part of goal production. Uh, but yeah, I like this idea that he needs to score goals. He wasn't a goal scorer in the beginning, so it's like asking a fish to fly. Like you can't. He doesn't know how to do that. So I don't like depending on him to do that is stupid in my opinion. Jade.
If you go into last season too, I wrote about it for Inside the Rink, but last season with the Knights, he was in 75 games and had 51 points. A majority of those were assists. So like just to additionally feed into what you guys are saying, he's not a high goal scorer. Like it he just isn't he's just not that guy, and that's okay because he makes up for it in other ways. And so you don't see his name pop up every single game for a goal, but he tends to kind of go under the radar with assists, or even if it's a secondary assist, that's still an assist. And um I don't know. I don't not to feed into the shit that people say. I don't love the contract either, but the Kraken need the help scoring goals that comes from people that are good at assisting in a goal. There's kind of a you kind of have to take that in consideration, in my opinion. So
Yeah, and I mean even to that point, like it, it wasn't the worst thing to sign a distributor either because it's like okay, maybe that gets Jared McCann more looks at the goal so he can actually. Because last season, if you'll remember, Jared McCann was playing center at times down the road, and he shouldn't have been doing that. He's a guy who can score. He's got a great shot. Like maybe a Stevenson would be able to get him the puck more. Jaden Schwartz the puck more. Oliver Board. They're like the idea here was to get those wingers, better looks. Um, it's funny they have Schwartz listed as a center on here. That is not correct. Uh, um, so yeah, I don't know. I'm just tired of it, and like I'm not either like extreme in either direction. Like he needs to be on this team moving forward, or you need to buy him out tomorrow, or I will combust. But like
I also think
He
that this is the first season with new coach, a couple new bigger pieces to the team, and the way that people are just writing off every single change that's been made
yeah.
since the end of last season. It seems a little bit premature, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's all made worse because you're losing,
Yep.
right? So we'll continue with the negativity here. Uh we might have a few of these, so anticipating multiple, but biggest letdown that can be performance. I mean, if you say the team, like we've already kind of talked about that, but this is more player based. I had a lot of hope for Andre Burakovsky bounce back. I was like, hey, had the offseason, you're healthy, just get back in the right mindset. And he hasn't been able to do that, you know. I don't know if there's anything. I mean, that's kind of been it. But obviously the big one is the the success of the team. But I guess the other thing would be to go back to what Sylvia mentioned earlier in the episode and what we've talked about throughout the course of the show, um, is the lack of going to the hard areas. Because obviously last year, you see how hard it is for you to score. Why aren't you going to the dirty areas? Why aren't you trying to get a difficult goal? You had all off season. You talk about, "Oh, we're gonna improve upon it. We're gonna do better," and then you're not doing it again this year. Those are my things. So Jade will go with you to talk about our disappointments, and Sylvia can wrap us up in that regard.
I'm going to keep mine really short and simple. Uh, the defense has been a really big disappointment for me this year. And that's one of those things that I feel like I talk about every game. I don't know, or at every game after every game on every episode of this that we've done so far, I tweet about it a lot. Just the defense, just it feels and seems and looks non-existent most of the time. That's it.
Yep. I'll tag on to yours and say the offense for me, where like if our defense suck, we should at least be attempting a shot on goal. Like
Hmm.
there have been times, I think when the last time I was watching a game like in person, I think might have been the Pride game where like we are consistently having periods where there's maybe two, three shots on goal the entire 20 minutes. Like that is just a wild number to have in a hockey game where you can just shoot from wherever technically, right? If you're not finding lanes, if you're not seeing lanes, like just shoot the puck and see what happens. I think like that's one of the biggest ones. The other one is the turnovers. Like it's just every shift, every player, every time the Kraken have the puck, it is like they're losing it on turnovers. It's upsetting to watch. Yeah, I think those have that the offense has just been kind of like you have one job and it is to shoot and you're not doing it. So really the entire team is just gone when you think
Yeah,
about
I'm laughing at the turnover thing because I, I've said this so many times at games. Charles has been talking or, observing himself, and I'm over there like, what? Why are you not just passing the puck to the person that's right behind you? Why are you just trying to do like a drop pass thing and then there's nobody that what stop turning the puck over, pay attention to what you're doing. But also, you've said this before and I've reiterated it. Stop thinking so much about what you're doing. I feel like there's just not really a fun like a there's they don't have a middle ground between thinking enough and thinking too much.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely feels like, and I think biggest example of this is Matty Beniers, where he's trying to create plays where his other team members, his line members, are just not seeing it. So at the end of
Hmm.
the day, nothing is happening. And then when there are plays to be made, when there are places he should be passing, it's not happening. So I
Yep.
think like you said, the team is either overthinking, trying to do a quick little pass. Maybe it'll
Hmm.
happen. They fully lose the puck, or they're just not shooting at all. and just not even getting to like the net or where they're supposed to be.
Yep, I agree.
All good points. I mean, it is always to go back to the shooting of the puck. Um, it is always fascinating, like with Jaden Schwartz, to go back to the Schwartz man, like especially that tear he got on beginning after the break. I think I told Jade this. I was like, at this point, just let him fucking shoot. Like, be selfish because when he's got the talent to make it work, and whether it is actually, something that might trick a goalie or it creates a rebound, like you shooting benefits your teammates because they aren't doing it. And this will kind of lead me into the last sort of superlative before we talk about a few topics that have become more relevant over the past few days. Um, about hope for the rest of the season. Like Kako has been able to come into this franchise and he does a lot of things already for you offensively that you really wish other players could do. I mean, it'd be cool if they were all as tall as he was, but they're not. They're one of the smaller teams in the league. Um, right? But I mean, Kako does go to the net. He has shown his ability to pass, as seen, in the Vancouver and Utah games. But he also has generated shot volume. Like you'll look at you look at the box score, right? Um, and he always seems to have a good amount each game, and for a guy who has the size and the build that he has, that's not necessarily something I'd expect from him. So to see him do it is encouraging. I just wish other guys would follow suit, as I mentioned with Schwartz. um yeah, hope for the rest of the season. I mean, knowing that we have our wonderful ever shining beam of optimism in Silvia, right? um it just doesn't look too good. Um, so what are the hopes for you guys for the rest of the season? Is it an individual thing? Is it a team-based thing? I would just love to see some of the younger players in a Kako, in a Shane Wright, even obviously Maddie, which it doesn't feel right adding him into that just because he's been around for the 3 years, but still counts. And if anyone else gets called up at this point in the season, I mean, you could add Ty Cartier, but it kind of feels like he will always kind of be a fourth line guy. I don't know. I feel like he's reached his ceiling to an extent. I just want to see the younger forwards really get more run. I'd like to Sheen from yeah. Uh I'd like to see Shane Wright get more minutes. I mean, he's playing less minutes than what Macklin Celebrini gets in San Jose. He's getting less minutes than what Uri Slavkovsky gets in Montreal. I'm not calling Shane Wright those guys, but I am saying that, with what he has shown throughout the course of the season, with how things have gone, I don't see what is stopping you from giving him more minutes. And especially with how the season has trended, I would just let the young kids ride it out. Like I would be more than happy for that. Get them more NHL experience. Let them learn from these game experiences because you can practice drills all you want. You can hit the ice, with your team all you want. Getting the game action makes you better. So that's what I want to see. I would love to see, you know, those those main three of Beniers, Wright, Kako, just kind of get more run. Sylvia will go to you, and then Jade will wrap us up on sort of our mid-season superlatives here.
I also had the use of younger players. I would love to see them just, get that ice time, just be used more dynamically, be used to their strengths a little more rather than the strengths of our core team that we already have on there. Kind of let them be a little bit more creative with their game. Um, and also, so I'm obviously not in the locker room. I'm not in these guys' heads, but I think that something the Kraken do not emit, I don't know a different word in English for this, um, they don't present, I guess, is a want to win, right? And like you can see it in the interviews that they give after losses. You can see it in the interviews that they give after wins too, where it does not feel like they're hungry for it. And I think that's what this team is missing. They're missing a reason to be hungry for it. And if losing day after day isn't it, then I want to know what it is and I will buy it off Amazon for them. I'll give it to them as a gift. But like I think like that's what I'm hoping for is I'm hoping then maybe it comes with newer players. So it comes with younger players who, first time in the NHL or like the first time in the big show, like this want and this passion to win that isn't just oh another day at CPA kind of thing, which is kind of like that's kind of the vibes I've been getting from the team. It's definitely the vibes that I've been getting from the fans. So like at what point, is there a change up there?
I agree with a lot of that. To the like, do you want to win point? Me and one of my group chats were talking about it earlier today that they don't seem scared to lose. Like losing just kind of feels like the norm at this point, and that's fine if you're intentionally tanking the season, but that's not quite where they're at. Well, they're quickly creeping up to that point, but uh up until recently that doesn't really seem like where they've been at. So I don't know. I would like to see more consistency from the team and hopefully not three more 6-2 wins, losses back to back to back in a row. Just consistency and a little bit more drive.
Yeah, I think the drive and the sort of the consistency because either way, whether they were consistently terrible or they were consistently mediocre or consistently good, any outcome in that regard makes them a like this season less maddening. But you see
Hmm.
the stretches where they show potential. You see the games where they go up against a top team in the league and they fight them hard for 60 minutes and they either come within a goal or two or they win it. And then you see them just absolutely get, smacked in the mouth by Cbus, by Detroit, the god awful stretch in San Jose and Anaheim. Um, it's just like, and that's the thing as well. We've said this on the show. Over the course of their existence, they haven't been consistent because they were bad in year one. They did great in year two, and they've been mediocre to now horrible the last 2 years. Um, they aren't consistent. It's not in their DNA. So it makes it more frustrating. And to Sylvia's point, and as Jade added on as well, there are just too many games where, yeah, it just seems like it doesn't matter to them. They don't care. Maddie Beniers was interviewed after this was being recorded the night of the Detroit game. He said they just didn't come out to play. There's too many times where that is said post game. That is unacceptable. And it's that sort of thing where and this also goes to another point about how they talk about going to the hard areas and then they don't do it. Like I got tired of Pete Carroll at the end of his time with the Seahawks because there were too many late game mistakes or undisciplined situations where after the game he goes, "That's on me. I got to be a better coach." You can't say that for 3 years and still be here. If it's 1 year and then you get it corrected in the off season, or if it is different things, but when it's different as like the same aspects, and you're saying that's on us, that cannot happen because then you're not improving. You're not improving, as in you're not trying. Well, you're not improving by not trying, or whatever you're doing is not working. Either way, it's time to move on. So,
I
that
feel
just
kind of the same way about the physicality thing. You and I keep hearing after every game where there's some sort of altercation, some sort of scrum, we want our identity to be more physical. And then I've seen a handful of times where there's plenty of opportunity to be physical and then they're not following through with that. So obviously I know, not every single chance that they have to be physical needs to be like somebody getting their ass beat on the ice or something. But like there are plenty of times where you can be a little bit more physical and kind of follow through with what you're saying. It feels that I guess kind of wraps back into the inconsistency where they're saying one thing and then doing the opposite, or saying one thing and doing like not quite what they intend to be doing. So just, yeah.
It's just, I, it's so sickening to hear this stuff all the time and then not see the improvement. So yeah, we'll go to stuff that's it's more relevant over the past really the last 2 days, this weekend. Stuff that's come up. I've already talked about what Elliot Friedman said on the 32 Pods podcast. I don't know what'll come of that. I don't know if that's real or not. There's also been stuff from a few different places where there's thoughts that Yanni Gord could get traded to Toronto. Obviously, with him hurt, that's kind of up in the air already. But on Sportsnet, after the Sabres game, Friedman reported that Kraken CEO Tod Leiweke met with the team in Buffalo. There, after the video of the players coming off the ice, I noticed you can see a guy who matches Leiweke's frame pretty well in his hair, hugging Joey as the last guy off the ice. There's not been any reasoning for why he visited the team. He doesn't normally, CEOs normally don't travel with the team anyway. And I had someone reach out to us on Twitter and say, "Hey, is there a reasoning for this?" They don't really do that, usually. Um, I've had people ask me this, like, "What do you think it is?" I don't know. You
Arizona
know,
hockey.
God damn it. But okay, perfect. I'll address that. There have been several fans who are like selling the team. No, the Oakview group that, in case you don't know, in case Kraken one, the ownership group for the Kraken is largely the Oakview group, right? It's a lot of people who a lot more money than all of us, different tax bracket. I just hear dollar signs. Me, oh wait, sorry, different tax bracket. I don't speak broke
Flex.
anymore. This is like 100 up. Oh, here you go. Go sign Brock Besser. Take this. Go sign Mikko Rantanen. Take this. Go sign who else is
Sidney
available.
Crosby. Let's do it.
Go sign Nikolai
No,
Eller. Go
Kraken 101.
go
Oh,
sign Brad Marchand. Go ahead. I love tipping. You know. Um, anyway, yeah, the Oakview group, sorry, before I flexed. There's a 20 back there. I can't lose that. I need it. um yeah, the Oakview group anyway. They were obviously heavily involved, when the NHL granted Seattle this franchise. Um, they're invested, they're the group that's, largely backing Memorial Stadium being rebuilt. If you don't know, again, we'll do Seattle area one-on-one. Memorial Stadium is a few 100 feet away from Climate Pledge Arena, and they've been in talks, or rumors about talks, about putting a bid in when the NBA decides to expand to bring an NBA franchise to Seattle. I think it's almost guaranteed they're like, this is not about selling the team. If that's wrong, I'll wear a wig for a week. Okay.
can I
Um,
pick what the wig is?
yeah, I am
We have
so
to take votes
confident
on
in
it.
that
No, no votes.
we can come back.
Democracy.
Can I get a
Um,
preview of it at least? Okay.
God damn it. So it's not that. It's not that. Um, I don't think it's a pep talk, because if that's the case, one, it only worked for the Buffalo game, and two, it's a little too far into the season to be having a little "you guys can do it" talk. And these are also grown men. They're getting paid millions of dollars. They talk about the Lord Stanley fellow that they all like. Sounds kind of, not gonna say that. What, Gary's coming for you. Um, like, they couldn't need more motivation. That's my point. Okay. Um, and if it's something drastic, it's interesting to me that he would do that in game 2 of this 5-game road trip, as opposed to waiting till later in the month, because again, they spend most of this month of January at home. That first part, which they already had, and then the second, like at the end of the month, they're in another large, longer homestand. So it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I'm very fascinated by this. I don't know if we'll ever even really hear about it. right? Because, I feel like the organization, if it's something super important, either one of the big wigs of the media, like a Friedman, will get it, or it'll just kind of go into the dust. So,
I'm essentially waiting for Friedman to start tweeting about it at approximately 5 a.m. our time, Pacific Standard Time tomorrow. I'm
uh,
usually awake when he starts tweeting. My sleep schedule is actually atrocious. But I tend to see his first tweet of the morning, and then I wake up again around like 11, see the waiver wire, and then go back to bed for a little bit. So I'm expecting if anybody's going to hear about it, it's probably going to be in the next couple days. But also just funny, one of my friends was like, maybe he's just there to see the Bills game. Maybe he's just a really big Bills fan and just like popped into the Kraken game or something, which I don't think that that's the case, but to stay positive, maybe he is a really big Bills fan and nobody knows.
Sylvia, do you have any thoughts on this?
I think he brought a gun and he gave Joey Daccord a gun, one bullet. He gets to pick one player to take out back, shot to the knee, nowhere else. I think it was yeah. I don't know. I generally don't know. I keep making that joke that the Kraken aren't going to sell. I think no one's going to sell the Kraken. Frankly, there's too much time. There's too much money in this team. Like people, I don't think people like the Kraken very much in Seattle, other than hardcore hockey fans. But I think there would be a lot of people upset that we got a hockey team before the NBA team came back,
Hmm.
and then the Kraken sold 4 years into whatever, right? I
That would
definitely,
be a really bad look
yeah,
for
it would be
getting an NBA
terrible.
team back.
Yeah, no, it would be so bad. Like I don't think that it's definitely not that. Um, yeah, my first thought was the fact that there was a game, like a football game in the area, and I was like, oh, I know rich people fly to football games. Like that's something they like to do. Yeah, it was like the my other thought was like, oh, maybe there's like some kind of conference in the area, and he just wanted to say hi to his little like buddies. I don't know. I don't think it's anything that anybody needs to freak out about, other than like maybe he did like a, I'm an owner, please do better, you're actually losing me money kind of talk.
I tend to speak things into existence when I say them, so I'm gonna keep my thoughts inside.
Oh, Jesus. I'm scared now.
I potentially not single-handedly, but I definitely spoke the Borgie Kako trade into existence. So
Oh,
I try to not talk about too much stuff.
well,
Manifestation powers.
I'll steer us away from that because now I'm scared.
Why haven't you been
Um,
manifesting wins? What's going on here, Jade?
Well, I've been
mm,
trying.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. Where are
Tank
our wins?
for the first pick. No, I have been trying to manifest wins, but no, when I start to talk about like really bad things, that's usually when stuff starts to happen. So,
mm,
They
um,
make pills for that these days.
huh?
They have medication for that these days.
Yeah, I know.
Stuff like that.
I'll steer us away. We'll take the ship over here. Just further, away with this idea of selling. I mean, Lewicki, if you're not aware of Sir Todd, very nice. He's very nice to Chuck when he sees him. I don't know why I'm talking about myself in third person. Uh, he's got experience. He worked with the Seahawks. He was an executive officer with the Seahawks, and with the Sounders. So he's got Seattle ties. It's not like he's new to the area. He's got a passion here. You know, um, I just, you know, I really doubt um that yeah, the guy like that, and again, who, with the Oakview group, that there's any idea um of a movement and sale in that regard. So I don't know what the Todd father is cooking up. Um, I am concerned. I don't even know if I want to sleep tomorrow or tonight. Maybe both. And that leads us to our last topic, which is somewhat minuscule, but at least worth discussion. Daniel Sprong, obviously, he's not with the team currently. He's in the organization. He was placed on waivers. Um, Good old John Hayden, who will punch your lights out, but also on several occasions has gone to me and he's gone, "Are you okay?" I'm just like, in the softest voice, I'm like, "You cannot do that. You are out there punching these grown men, and then you're talking to me like an ASMR YouTuber. not do that. Pick a lane, please. John Hayden's been called up to take his spot. Daniel Sprong did clear waivers to the chagrin of many on Twitter, which isn't a high bar. You can essentially have no brain cells and be on Twitter and make comments, otherwise known as some fan pages. And he's played now 2 games with the Coachella Valley Firebirds and scored 3 goals. I know he had an assist yesterday as well. I don't know if he had any tonight. I can do that while I'm yapping. Um, but after the game on Saturday, he made some comments that were unique, per se, and he said outright, which some words that I'm sure a lot of players who end up down there will think at any point in time. I want to prove that I don't belong here. He also said he was too many steps ahead early in the game and had to slow it down mentally and get on that speed. Folks did not like that, um, for a multitude of reasons. Um, Silvia, we will go with you. Jade, we will go with you after that. Our thoughts on comments made by the balding man and your opinions on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, I'm sure he is definitely not the first player to have thought it. I think he might be one of the first players to say it out loud. And I think I mean, that'll have an impact on in the locker room, I would say. I don't think anybody, especially developing players, want to hear that, this guy isn't good enough or is too good to be around them. Like, I'm sure, like, here's the thing with Daniel Sprong is that he's like not totally wrong, right? He is too good for the AHL. He's been in the NHL for a really long time. I think he started with after he was drafted by Pittsburgh. He started like pretty much after he was drafted. I think he went back to the Q. That might be totally wrong. Wherever he was in the juniors, like a few games, and then he was back up. It was a whole thing. Um, that being said, though, like he's also just not good enough for the NHL. Like he's kind of in between right now. And I think it's a good mindset to have as a player. You do want to prove that you are better than a minor league team. And you do want to prove that you are good enough to play in the pros. I just don't think that it's just not a good locker room like builder, right? Especially as a vet. You don't want your vets to be saying that. You don't the Coachella Firebirds are like a fantastic team. I think they're second or third in their division. I think they're seventh. Yeah, they're seventh in the league. Stats boy, please. So like that's a whole like it's not like he's playing with a terrible team. Am I right? Oh, Charles, yes.
Second in the division, seventh in the league, ma'am.
Yes, thank you so much. I love being right. So like he's not wrong. It's a good sentiment to have. It's a good goal to have. Is it the way that you build up players in your locker room as a vet? You're playing with all these young guys who maybe have never had a chance to play in the pros. No, it's not. It's also just not a good team player look. I think Daniel Sprong has already had several, like, he's kind of not a locker room guy situations happen to him before. So it doesn't put a good look on him. It's not the best PR, really. And I think that's where a lot of people got stuck on it. Is the fact that it just sounds mean. And a lot of people really like those players in the AHL, and they don't want their little guys to be talked about like that. So, and I think that was part of that big reaction that we saw on social media. But like I said, good player or good goal for Daniel Sprong to have. I don't know if like that's a thing. That's an inside thought. I don't know if that's something that you share with the class.
I agree with that. I definitely understand his frustration. He seemed really excited to be back in Seattle. I feel like I'm just repeating things that I've said a million times already. Because I've talked about it with a lot of different people, but I feel like he was really excited to be back in Seattle, and that's fantastic for him. But he just wasn't quite at the NHL level anymore. I feel like he just when he was on the ice, it just didn't really show that like he deserved to be there. It feels mean, but like he didn't really show, in my opinion, that he really deserved to be there. And so I think going down to the AHL and then immediately having two really good games kind of shows that like that's a better suited place for you, at least for right now. And I definitely think that like that should be a goal of his to get back to the NHL at some point. Granted, those comments weren't super cool of him. And that kind of rubbed me the wrong way personally. But also the way that some players, kind of him included based on those comments, say like treat the AHL. It's like they treat it like it's like a death sentence almost. Like you go to the AHL and your career is ruined for the rest of forever. And that's just not the case. So many players get sent down and just need like a rehab stint or like, go back down there and work on fine-tuning parts of your game and then you can come back up to the NHL and you might go on a tear, but that's I don't know. The AHL is so important and it's still a professional league in the way that a lot of fans, people that don't know that much about hockey, people that, players even treat it. It's like you go down and that's it. Your career's done. They treat it like it's not much better than a beer league. So I have a lot of feelings that are more like AHL specific related, but also if you're going back down and you're already doing better, maybe that's a sign.
Yeah, I mean, and also to that point, specifically to the AHL thing, you have players on there who are like lifelong AHLers who are genuinely having like blowout seasons every season. They never see the NHL, but they're still, I think one thing that's incredibly special about the AHL, and this kind of goes back to a conversation we had about how teams interact with the communities around them.
Hmm.
AHL teams are so good about building the communities that they're in and interacting with them and being like huge parts of them. I think, for an example, when the fires in LA first started, I think the Kings AHL team kind of like got on gear to start doing donation drives before the Kings did. So like, yeah, there, and I could be totally wrong. That's how I saw it on my timeline. Um, but like there's AHL teams, because they're so much smaller, you have to be able to build that community, to have
Yeah.
that community in the space. And that's like a big part of the AHL player development, is learning how to be a community member. And I think a lot of players who go directly to the NHL or never have an AHL stint don't get that. Um, I don't see how you can go to the AHL and then like look at these players, these AHL vets who've been there their entire lives, who are making good money, who are building their families around this organization and this team, and then go, yeah, I deserve to be somewhere else. I'm better than everybody here. And obviously that's not what he said word for word, but that is what it sounded like. Even when you listen to the entire comment that he made, that is what it sounded like.
I also feel like going back to what I said about him being like, excited to be back in Seattle. I understand where he's coming from in the sense that he got traded back to Seattle and then got healthy scratched for I can't actually remember how many games it was right now, but healthy scratched for a good amount of games and then put on waivers, sent down to the AHL. Like I understand where he's coming from being frustrated. You're so excited to come back to this place that and this organization that you're familiar with and a handful of players that you're still familiar with, and then you don't get the playing time and then you get sent down. His execution of what he said was just not good. Needed some media training.
Yeah, there's a few things I want to speak on that because what Sylvia mentions about, the AHL, I mean, you could really kind of and Sylvia probably might know it better, at least in regards to Tri-City and the Americans, right? But like like minor league teams, whether it is hockey or baseball, because I go to the Everett Aqua Sox games. there are folks like old folks who have been going there for years, and they might not go to a Mariners game, even though that is the goal of what the Aqua Sox are doing. But they love the Aqua Sox because it's right in their community, and they've been doing these events for years. Same with the Rainiers. There are people who care more. Same with I know, obviously when the Kraken came to Seattle, it was a big deal to have an NHL team. But I'll notice there are fans of the Thunderbirds, and I mentioned them first because I was raised a bird and the silver tips who care they do not care about the Kraken. The Thunderbirds are where like whether it's their billet families, or they do the booster events, like those things matter. And the players are far more accessible, at those levels. So it's like, yeah, like that is a great point. So, we don't have brownie points, but it's always like it's always fun when we do. I don't have anything for you. Um, oh, well, I already gave you one of
Put 20,
these.
put 20 in here. Put a 20 in.
No, no, I need that. I gotta eat tomorrow. Jesus. It's like that is a relevant point. Um, and again with Daniel here, like, yeah, he was not playing at a level that was satisfactory for the Kraken. He doesn't back check, he doesn't do anything in the defensive zone. Again, as someone who's watched it, like I don't like the idea that he didn't get a chance because he had it with Vancouver. They put him in the press box. He had 10 games with Seattle, which I know it isn't 40, but you got to do things in those 10 games to get on. If you're not scoring these wicked snipes, you have to do other things to warrant some value at the NHL level. Maybe if you are helping the younger guys like Shane, like Ty's younger than him, and there are a lot of players that are younger than him. Maybe you'd have some value, but you didn't. They decided to bring in John Hayden, who is a guy who's largely been a death piece in his career, right? And bring him up. You cleared waivers. If someone wanted you and they saw your value that the Seattle hasn't, someone would have picked you up. They didn't. And if you wanted to leave and you wanted to be out of the organization, you could have said, I don't want to be outrighted. It happens all the time with waivers. I see it in the MLB, I see it in the NHL. Like it happens. You could have, if you didn't want to be there, you didn't have to be. But obviously, you had to stick up your ass and you said, okay, I don't belong here. I'm going to prove it. And sure, maybe you proved it, with your goals against the Chicago Wolves. Um, I'm thankful that those AHL teams were not the ones over the weekend fighting each other on Twitter, which is a whole other thing. Um, but yeah, to that point mentioned earlier about the young guys, this is a Coachella Valley team now this year that is largely Kraken prospects. The last few years it has been guys who are essentially career AHLers. Andrew Podorowski. I talked to Max McCormick in training camp this year, right? A guy that has been in the Seattle system the last few years. I think he was with them the inaugural season. Yeah, and he went down to the Charlotte Checkers when they shared the AHL team with the Panther. Panther, I think so.
Enter.
Panther. um, you know, and I talked to Max, and I talked to him. I was like, "Hey, man, do you like you've obviously been with this organization. You've seen some of the younger guys like Shane go on. Like, have you ever thought about wanting to go somewhere else and maybe get more of an NHL opportunity?" He's like, "No." He's like, he's fine with his role and he's happy to mentor these kids. That's what you want from a guy who has gotten time at the NHL level, is to mentor these guys. And especially right now with this Firebirds roster, yeah, like Silvia mentioned, there are a lot of little guys here. Leighton Road, Logan Morrison are two of the guys that played on Sprong's line tonight. Yanni Newman, Ryan Winterton, Edward Shale, Jagger Furcus, Luke Hedman, first ever Kraken ever, Luke Hedman, Jacob Melanson. Like, I take out McKinnon, Biro, and Myers of the other of forwards there, and those are all kids, right? Granted, Henman's been with the Firebirds the last few years, and so have Melanson and Newman, but they're so young prospects. Like, you could really make an impact on these guys. You've scored at the initial level. Like Sylvia mentioned, you've been around for a while. You can make an impact. Instead, you're bitching during a press conference, to the three media that are at the fire. I'm not trying to disrespect, but some of the questions they ask, I've listened to the post game. They're not great. Um, it is remarkable. And to the point like you've both made, sure, I understand what he's saying. I don't think like the idea is wrong. Like, yes, you want to make it back to the NHL. You want to prove, hey, I have value. I just needed maybe a tune-up, right? But how he went about it with that comment and just given some of the character things that, you know, there's a lot we could talk about with Daniel Sprong. It's not surprising to me per se, right? So, um, that's my thoughts on it. Like, I was telling Silvia before we started here, and it wouldn't have been in our cold open. Sorry, Silvia. Um, like, I had to read it a few times because I was confused by it. I was like, huh? Um, so yeah, that's just my thoughts on it. As we've said, there's a lot of young talent on this Firebirds team that will represent the future of this franchise. And
Hmm.
you'd like a guy who has spent a good amount of time in the NHL to show them the ropes, to show them how he trains, how he prepares for a game, what works for him, to impact a game. Um, and maybe he is doing that in the locker room. And obviously we don't see it. We're not in Coachella Valley. I'm in a really cold place right now in Seattle with, what is the sun?
Yep.
Um,
It was sunny out here today. It was
it
like 40.
was. I was recording earlier, and that window back there was like just blinding. It didn't help that it would bounce off this head. So,
One day,
um,
we should carve out some time for me to talk about how I think the Coachella Valley Firebirds should have been in Yakima all along. Um, I have a PowerPoint.
oh, PowerPoint. Okay. Well, with how things are going, I feel like we'll need the positivity and the non-negative side of things. So we
Hmm.
can we can work that out. But yeah, it has been the past week for your Seattle Kraken as it's by the time you're seeing this January 13th, 2025. It's let me look here at the upcoming week because they'll close out this road trip, this 5 game road trip, and then they'll come back to as we mentioned, they've got a big 2 4 oh no, it's not a yeah, I like normal long homestands, right? Because there's 4 games at home, one against Edmonton on the road. Then the next day they play Anaheim here, and they have the Sharks here. So it's like it could be a nice, perfect, altogether 6 game homestand. But Edmonton, those Oilers, I mean, terrible. Yeah. Anyway, they close out. They got this week here, Tuesday, in Pittsburgh against the Penguins. I know people who will be there. Staring at Silvia. Oh, oh wow. Uh-oh. We're
Wow.
gonna get out of here before Flyers and Penguins discourse starts. They go to Winnipeg to play the Jets, and I can only imagine what the score will be against Winnipeg if you lost 6-2 to Detroit today. Then they come back home and they have the Los Angeles Kings on Saturday at 7 o'clock at Climate Pledge Arena. So, uh, folks, until we see you next time. Take care of yourselves. Maybe that includes not watching Kraken hockey. Maybe that includes finding another hobby, crocheting, maybe,
Outside.
um,
There's some grass.
grass.
Breathe some
Uh,
fresh air.
watch some real hockey.
They're
Um,
on YouTube.
yep, free. You don't have to worry about. It's always funny. People still text me about how to watch these games. I was like, they put them on more things. I can't help you. Um, yeah, take care of yourselves. Be well, and do whatever you can to make today a great day, and less of a Daniel Sprong day.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, where are you going to watch all those Kraken away games?
Kraken away games, making a push. I was thinking of coming here just because Rough and Tumble is the home of circling Seattle sports, only if that's okay with you.
I mean, I love that idea. Hope to see you here.